So thank you for showing up at the end of the day. Very much appreciate that. I think it'll be an interesting story to tell you about our Trust Your Supplier blockchain network that we built. So just a little bit about myself, and then I'll have a slide on our company, then I'll get right into the use case. So I am VP for Business Development at Chainyard. We are based in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. And I consider myself these days to be kind of a blockchain network strategist, helping organizations figure out how to build or grow new blockchain networks. So working with some startups, working with some large enterprises on using the capabilities that we have in our business to help them build these blockchain networks. I've been working with emerging technologies for a long time. And I really enjoy kind of figuring out the puzzle of how do you take some new change in technology and apply it into business and evangelize it appropriately in a way that'll get some traction. I will say this is a difficult area relative to the ones that I've worked in the past, and I think you all probably understand why, with the need to bring multiple parties together, create some unique challenges in building blockchain networks. Been learning more, and that's always good. So our company is a professional services company. Primarily, we do consulting and implementation for blockchain solutions. We've done more than 24 projects. We've got at least 4 in production now. We've been at this since early 2016, and most of the work that we've done has been with Hyperledger, kind of actually before Hyperledger existed, starting to work with IBM, and as they were contributing Fabric into to Hyperledger. We kind of got an unfair advantage by being so early. We were able to kind of learn a lot and then harvest a lot of that knowledge into a set of accelerators that we use on projects to help rapidly get these networks stood up. That doesn't solve all the problems with building consortiums and things like that, but from a technical perspective, we've got a lot of pieces that make this an easier process. So that is myself and Chainyard. But let's talk about this solution that we built. So, as I said, we're a consulting and implementation services company, but our CEO kind of challenged us back in 2016, 2017, hey, are there some solutions that we should build and bring to market ourselves, that might be more of a product? I think he likes to have his hands in a lot of different things, so he wasn't happy enough just being a consulting company. So this was a concept that we had back in 2017 that we kind of gone through a multi-year process to evolve it and build it into something that I think is pretty significant today. And so the concept was to create a trusted source of supplier information and digital identity, and to simplify and accelerate the supplier onboarding and lifecycle management. And then this whole self-sovereign identity terminology wasn't there in 2017, but we thought identity was a good space for the use of blockchain in general, and we thought kind of data that's relatively static versus transactional data was a good place to start in doing blockchain. Data that needed to be consistent across a number of different parties, that was seemed like a low risk opportunity to get going on. So that was why we focused on the supplier information management arena. And we knew there were problems here because we were a small company that would sell our services to large companies, and we would get some manager to say, yeah, I want to use you. I'm going to send you over to procurement now. And then we get stuck in this information collection process and they would be asking us a bunch of questions back and forth, and it could take a long time. And sometimes the manager who wanted to use us was taking a little bit of a risk to bring in a new vendor and didn't want to like wait forever for us to be able to deliver our services. So it created problems for us because maybe they would just go with the guys who were already qualified and validated that their existing vendors. So we knew there was pain in this, and we started talking to IBM, who's our partner on this network. They fill the role of subject matter experts for us and are our go-to-market partner. And when we said, we think there's a lot of problems here, they were like, yeah, you don't even understand how big of a problem this is for us. So both sides were seeing it, but on their side, they just had like this cumbersome process, a lot of people collecting the information, validating the information, and then like they didn't have all their systems like going to a single system of record. And then we moved, and IBM didn't have in their system our address for quite some time, our new address. And we learned like this is common. We talked to a lot of large enterprises. They all have this kind of clunky process that is ripe for improvement. So a slow and inefficient process, we're seeing 40 plus days to onboard a new vendor in large enterprises. And it's actually getting worse because there's all kinds of new regulatory requirements that come up. Or now it's like, is your what's your environmental and sustainability stuff about? So there's more stuff that they want to know. And then they have like existing technology where everybody has their own databases. So you go to big company A, they have their own supplier data. You go to big company B, they have their own supplier data. Well, if you were to look in those two databases, you'd find it's almost all the same information, but everybody's managing it in kind of an old way. So there's a lot of opportunity to do something different. So we got the validation and we said, okay, let's go build this blockchain-based supplier information management solution. So I won't read every word on this slide, but the key points are that it's really solving a business problem and dramatically reducing the cycle time to onboard a new supplier, right? And what we've done, and it's helping suppliers too, in that as a supplier, if I want to do business with a new buyer, I can take the information that I have in my profile that's in this blockchain network and say, I grant you access to that. And they get all the information that they need. But it's not just about a supplier putting information into a blockchain and the buyers reading that information. It's about building a network that has other parties who can do things like provide certificates. So we are a minority-owned business, and there's a group out there that certifies who, are you legit in that? So in this blockchain, they'll be putting their certificates directly onto the blockchain. And if they don't put it onto the blockchain themselves, someone else can verify that information and record that verification. We also have people who can augment the data about a supplier. So usually you'll find companies get the information from the supplier, then they go to Dun & Bradstreet to get like credit information and some sort of additional analytics about that supplier. We have brought these parties together into a network such that when you begin a relationship with a supplier, all of the claims that they make and all of the claims made about them by others are there in a blockchain, recorded in an immutable way, so that if there is a problem down the road, you can know when was that information available to me. So it reduces the risks for the buyer as well, which is what this whole process is about, right? It's not that they don't want to buy from you. They just see you as, if you're a supplier, as a potential risk, right? And they need to make sure that the information that you're providing is credible. So, I think honestly, this is a pretty easy concept to get. So I'm not going to drill down into like a lot more details about the use case concept, because if you're in a big business, you're already doing this, and you could see, oh, if this information was just available to me, in a way that I can trust, that would be golden. Okay. So to build a blockchain network, we had to think about, would this be, how can we make this successful? And part of that is making sure that there's value for every party who's participating in the network. So this is a good example of one of these charts, but we kind of do these for all of the networks that we think about. Who are all the players in the ecosystem, and really what's in it for each of those players? And there's players that we had to think about that go beyond the ones that I referenced before, including these business networks. Like if you're in supply chain, like Ariba and Coupa, and these business networks that do the transactions for a lot of purchasing. We needed to figure out, well, are they going to fight us, or are they going to see us as a complement to what they do? We had to think about organizations like Dun & Bradstreet. Are they going to fight us and see us as like we're trying to disrupt their business? Or could they see us as a channel that if we're bringing buyers into one location, that now they could start to sell additional information about that supplier on top of what they were already doing? So we thought this through, and it has worked out. I'll share with you kind of, we've actually, this may be one of the few blockchains in the world that you'll hear about where we were surprised with how successful it's been. And I've been on other ones that I'm telling you, they're struggles, multi-year struggles. But this one, people could see the value, and we got over 20 big companies to join very rapidly. And not only to join, but to agree to participate in governing the network, right? And these are big companies that want to bring their suppliers in and help us create a critical mass and recognize the value of creating that critical mass, not just for themselves, but for their industry. Because honestly, this isn't a space where people really compete. This is just the frustrating work that has to be done to manage the risk, right? But it's not like a product or service that company is trying to offer. They just, and if they all can get suppliers faster, it just helps everybody. So we got this really good governance board. We just got Saudi Aramco as a founding buyer. So founding buyers are kind of have other benefits in the network. So we've gone international. We've gone cross-industry. We've got these ecosystem partners that are providing additional information, like EcoVadis provides information about ecological sustainability stuff around suppliers and adds on to the information the core information we have. And we're getting these business networks to work with us so that we integrate our data into their network, because they're more interested in the transactions. And we said, okay, we're going to focus on the supplier information and not the transactions. So it's beneficial for a lot of parties. So we've been really excited about how that's worked out. And another thing is that it's just easy to use, right? So people think about blockchain and they're like, I've seen so many demos of blockchain, and you're looking at, terminals, screens, or whatever, and long wallet addresses and stuff like that. This is just a web app, right? You as a user of this on the buyer side, you've got your dashboard, you've got your list of suppliers, and you're just working at it as a normal application. And that's where everything in this space needs to be, but it's getting the benefit of the network effect and the trust that we get from blockchain underneath the covers. Okay, and there's actually, this is a screenshot from a demo up on YouTube. If you search Trust Your Supplier on YouTube, you'll see there's a buyer demo and a supplier demo that walks through the application. And really what the application is primarily just a set of questionnaires where you're targeting questionnaires to suppliers, and the suppliers are going in and filling in the questionnaires, and that information is getting recorded onto the blockchain. So people want to think about the governance side of this, and I mentioned that we put together a governance board. So just to be clear, where there's and this was good in the panel this morning about, there's a place where people are at today, and then there's a much bigger vision that they have for decentralized governance. Today, we're fairly centralized. It's we have Chainyard, IBM, and these other governance board participants, but those other governance board participants are kind of like an advisory board today. But we want to give them increasing amounts of power over time to address these types of issues, to steer the roadmap for this solution. So it's not just Wall Street deciding what's the most financially beneficial thing, but this is a community-driven, what's good for the users of this solution. And then to manage the performance and of the network operator. So in this case, Chainyard is the network operator. And to eventually be able to cut our contract for network operator if we don't perform. To determine the rules for data use, who can be in the network, and to help grow the network. So those are some of the things that we do in the governance board. And that's still like, they're working together to better define that over time. Now I did get too wordy, so I'm over 5 o'clock. But so these slides are up on they're uploaded, so you can grab them. But these are some of the things that we thought about is this better on blockchain? And we truly believe that this is the right technology to manage this data, but it also provides a foundation for a lot more things to happen on top of it. So we've got this network in place. We've got these big players who are buyers and suppliers together, and we have a marketplace that we're building where parties can bring third-party applications on top of that to leverage the blockchain platform that we've put in place over time. So there's a lot of places where we can grow this, but it creates a lot of opportunities for partners to work on top. Okay, and we like the governance model, the blockchain ethos of shared governance. We think it'll be most successful. Last point I'll make is that this is identity. So a lot of people, when they think about identity, they think about identity of individuals. This is identity of businesses. And we have adopted the W3 standards for decentralized identity. We are a credential provider. Suppliers can hold their decentralized identity, present it to a buyer. The buyer can go to a resolver that we've published to resolve that identity is the identity of the supplier. So that is an area that we've added kind of over the last year as that standard has developed. But I think that's something that will allow us over time to be maybe more interoperable as well with other parties. So we're trying to keep up the innovation in this space. So that's what I got. If there are any questions, there's nothing after this, so we can stay. But I'm happy if you want to get up. I understand. It's a long day. Sure. Go ahead.
I got to go, but I got 2 questions.
Yep.
One, is your data reference data actually stored on the chain? Secondly, this is basically a utility.
Yes, it's a utility. Yep.
So we could have certainly done it with the data center. Why blockchain? In other words, clearly the benefit is in the value provided by the partners that are providing this teaming up for the service. And so,
If one central party did this, you can always make the claim that there's some, if there's an issue, there's an industrial accident, what was the claim of that supplier? How can I trust that claim? Now we have, decentralized that trust.
well, right, but you still have the notion of utility in the consortium is that like DTCC is majority owned by all the banks.
Right.
So there is a large amount of distrust for these things. At the same time, utilities that are organized for industry
Right.
don't necessarily have to be done with blockchain.
That's right. But blockchain is a better model because in a utility that's not organized this way, then they are still relying on some party to deal with that data set. In our model, any of these members, the buyers or the governance board members, they can choose to operate a node and have control over what code goes on that node. And they can block upgrades. So that's another level of trust over any centralized system.
Store the actual data on the chain, or is it off chain?
It depends. There's a model for what's on and what's off, and obviously the big stuff is not on the chain. So,
Whatever you put on the chain is hard to.
but it's all secured by the chain. Yeah. You're welcome.